Sir, step out of the vehicle for me.
Excuse me? What seems to be the problem, officer?
We'll talk about it outside. Go ahead and step out now.
I don't understand. I wasn't speeding and everything's in order.
Nice ride you got here. How'd you manage your car like this?
I'm on my way to court downtown. Is there a legitimate reason?
Step out of the car, sir, now.
All right, I'm getting out.
The dashboard camera shows 6:47 a.m. A black Mercedes sedan glides through the empty intersection, turn signal blinking, moving exactly at the speed limit. Inside, Jonathan Webb adjusts his tie in the rearview mirror. His briefcase sits on the passenger seat, containing 200 pages of carefully organized evidence for the civil rights case he's about to argue in federal court. He's 32 years old. This is the biggest morning of his career. The blue lights appear behind him without warning. Jonathan's first thought is confusion. He signals, checks his mirrors, and pulls to the side of the road. His hands move to the steering wheel at 10 and 2. He's done nothing wrong, but he knows the protocol. Keep your hands visible, move slowly, speak clearly, survive the encounter. The officer approaches from the driver's side, one hand resting near his service weapon. Jonathan notices this immediately. It's a detail that shouldn't matter, but it does. The window comes down. Step out of the vehicle. The voice is flat, no inflection. Mid-40s, maybe older. The kind of voice that's given this command 1,000 times before. No greeting, no explanation, no request for license or registration. Jonathan keeps his voice even, professional. "Good morning, officer. Can I ask why I was pulled over?" The officer's jaw tightens. His hand shifts closer to his holster. "I said step out of the vehicle, now." Jonathan's legal training kicks in immediately. Something is wrong. Standard protocol for a traffic stop involves identification, documentation, and explanation of the violation. This is none of those things. This is a command without context, authority without justification. "Officer, with respect, I'd like to know what violation I'm being stopped for. Am I being detained? Am I free to go?" The officer takes a step back, and his posture changes. His hand now rests directly on his service weapon. His eyes are hidden behind mirrored sunglasses, even though the sun hasn't fully risen yet. "Last time, step out of the vehicle, or I will remove you." Jonathan's heart rate spikes. He's done nothing. The officer hasn't even looked at his registration, hasn't asked for identification, hasn't provided any legal basis for the stop. This isn't procedure. This is something else entirely. He can see more of the officer now through the window. Clean-shaven, pressed uniform, the kind of presentation that suggests discipline and order, which makes the absence of proper procedure even more disturbing. There's no uncertainty in his face, no hesitation, just a fixed determination that feels entirely disconnected from anything Jonathan has done or failed to do. The officer is treating him like a threat before knowing anything about him beyond what he can see through the window. A young black man in an expensive car at dawn. "Sir, I'm an attorney. I'm due in federal court in less than 2 hours. I have a right to know why I'm being stopped." The officer's expression doesn't change. If anything, the mention of his profession seems to make things worse. His mouth forms a thin line. "Open the door and step out, or I'm opening it for you." Jonathan has a choice to make, and he has seconds to make it. He can continue asserting his rights, which is legally correct but practically dangerous. Every instinct honed by 3 years of law school and 2 years of practice tells him this stop is unlawful. No violation cited, no documentation requested, no legal basis provided. But every lesson taught by his father, who was taught by his grandfather, tells him something different. Survival first, rights later. Live to fight another day. His hand moves slowly toward the door handle. "I'm opening the door now. I'm complying." The morning air hits him as he steps out, cold and sharp. His breath forms clouds. He keeps his hands visible, away from his body, palms open. The officer is already moving, aggressive and fast, in a way that suggests this isn't about de-escalation or safety. This is about dominance. "Hands on the vehicle. Spread your legs." Jonathan complies, his palms flat against the cold metal of his car. He's thinking about the courtroom where he's supposed to be in 90 minutes. He's thinking about his client, a woman who was wrongfully terminated from her job for reporting harassment. He's thinking about how he promised her he'd be there. A second patrol car pulls up. Jonathan hears the door open, hears boots on pavement. 2 officers now. The choreography is familiar to anyone who's watched bodycam footage from hundreds of similar encounters. 2 officers, 1 vehicle, no explanation, no documentation, no stated cause. The pat-down is aggressive, thorough, humiliating. Jonathan stares straight ahead at the trees lining the road while strange hands search his body. The officer's hands move methodically, professionally, but with an intensity that feels excessive for a traffic stop with no stated violation. Other cars drive past, some slow down to watch, no one stops. He wonders what they see: a criminal being apprehended, a dangerous person being neutralized, or a lawyer being degraded for no reason other than the color of his skin and the quality of his car. The search yields nothing. Of course it yields nothing. Jonathan doesn't use drugs, he doesn't carry weapons. He carries legal briefs and evidence exhibits and a profound belief in the system he's dedicated his life to serving. "What's your name?" the first officer finally asks, his tone unchanged, mechanical. "Jonathan Webb." "What are you doing out here this early?" "I'm driving to federal court. I'm an attorney arguing a case this morning." The second officer, younger, maybe early 30s, lets out a short laugh. It's not a friendly sound. "An attorney? Sure you are. In a car like this?" The implication lands like a physical blow. Jonathan's credentials don't make him more trustworthy in this moment. They make him more suspicious. Success itself becomes evidence of wrongdoing when the person succeeding doesn't fit the expected profile. "I'd like to see your identification," the first officer says, still in that flat, emotionless tone. Now they want documentation. After the stop, after the search, after the humiliation. Jonathan keeps his voice steady. "My wallet is in my jacket pocket. May I reach for it?" Slowly. He produces his driver's license and his state bar card, the small piece of plastic that identifies him as a licensed attorney. The officer examines both, turning them over in his hands, studying them longer than necessary, as if trying to reconcile what he's seeing with what he expected to see. "Where'd you get the money for a car like this, counselor?" The question comes out with the faintest edge, barely perceptible, but unmistakably there. The question is insulting, invasive, and completely irrelevant to any legitimate law enforcement purpose. Jonathan knows this. He also knows that pointing it out won't help. "I purchased it with money I earned from my legal practice." Aha. What kind of law? Civil rights litigation. The air between them changes. The officer's face hardens, his jaw clenching slightly. He hands back his identification, but his posture remains aggressive. "Pop the trunk." "Am I being detained for a specific violation?" "Pop the trunk or we'll pop it for you." Jonathan reaches through the open window and pulls the trunk release. The officers move to the back of the vehicle, and he hears them rifling through his belongings, his gym bag, his emergency kit, his case files. Papers rustle, zippers open and close. This is a fishing expedition, plain and simple. They're searching for anything they can use to justify a stop they made without justification. They find nothing, because there's nothing to find. They knew there would be nothing to find. That was never the point. The first officer returns to where Jonathan stands. He's removed his sunglasses now, and his eyes are cold, calculating. "You got any weapons in the vehicle?" "No, sir." "Any drugs?" "No, sir." The officer pauses, tilts his head slightly. "You use cocaine, counselor, marijuana, pills. Lot of lawyers do, I hear. High-stress job." Jonathan's stomach drops. This is a setup. He can feel it. "No, I don't use any illegal substances." "Mind if we bring a canine unit out, just to be sure?" The implication is staggering.
They're threatening to call a drug dog based on nothing. No suspicious behavior, no probable cause, just a fishing expedition that's getting more aggressive by the minute. Jonathan knows the statistics on canine false positives. He knows how easily dogs can be cued by their handlers. He knows that a dog alert, even a false one, would give them justification to tear his car apart. Officer, I've done nothing illegal. I don't consent to any searches. I'm invoking my Fourth Amendment rights. That's what people with something to hide usually say. The officer's tone hasn't changed, still flat, still emotionless, which somehow makes the accusation more chilling. I'm not hiding anything. I'm exercising my constitutional rights. The second officer steps closer now, flanking him. Seems like you know a lot about your rights, maybe too much. Jonathan feels the situation spiraling. Knowing your rights is being used as evidence against you. Success is suspicious. Education is threatening. There's no winning move here, no correct answer that de-escalates this encounter. You mind if we search the interior? The officer asks, though it's not really a question. This is the moment. Jonathan knows the law better than most people in the state. He knows that they've already violated his Fourth Amendment rights by searching his trunk without probable cause. He knows that he has the right to refuse further searches. He also knows that refusal will be interpreted as obstruction, as evidence of guilt, as justification for further escalation. I do not consent to a search of my vehicle. You haven't provided any legal basis for this stop, and I'm invoking my constitutional rights. For a moment, everything is still. The two officers exchange glances. Jonathan can see them calculating, deciding how far they're willing to push this. He's hoping his profession provides some protection. He's hoping the fact that he'll know how to file complaints and lawsuits provides some deterrent. He's hoping that his articulate invocation of his rights demonstrates that he's not someone who can be easily bullied. He's hoping wrong. The first officer's hand moves to his belt, but not to his gun, to his taser. The yellow and black device emerges, and Jonathan's entire body goes cold. The officer's face remains expressionless, no anger, no emotion, just mechanical compliance with the decision already made. Turn around, hands behind your back. Officer, I've complied with every lawful order. I've done nothing wrong. You haven't cited a single violation or provided any legal basis for this stop.
The taser comes up, aimed at his chest. Turn around now or you will be tased. Jonathan's mind races through the possibilities. If he continues to resist verbally, he could be tased, arrested, possibly injured. His court case would be delayed, his client would suffer, his reputation could be damaged. The body cam footage would show him being tased, and half the people who watched it would assume he must have done something to deserve it. If he complies, he submits to an unlawful detention, validates the abuse of authority, and becomes another silent victim of a system that targets people who look like him. He turns around. Before we continue, if you're watching this and your heart is racing right now, if you're feeling what Jonathan felt in that moment, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below, and tell us where in the world you're watching from. These stories need to reach every corner of the globe, because this isn't just one man's experience. This is a pattern. This is a system, and your engagement helps expose it. Now let's see what happened next. The handcuffs are tight, deliberately so. Metal bites into his wrists. The first officer's grip is firm as he secures them, checking the tightness with a practiced motion that suggests he's done this countless times. Jonathan can feel the circulation being restricted, but he says nothing. Complaint will be interpreted as resistance. He's placed in the back of the patrol car, where he sits for 53 minutes while both officers search his vehicle without consent and without cause. Through the window, he watches them open his briefcase. Papers scatter in the wind. A deposition transcript blows across the road into a ditch. Months of work treated like garbage by people who have no idea what they're looking at and no interest in finding out. They search methodically, removing floor mats, checking under seats, opening every compartment. The younger officer holds up a small white packet from the center console, shows it to his partner. Jonathan's heart stops. He knows what's in there. Protein powder, single-serving packets he keeps for the gym. The older officer opens it, dips his finger in, tastes it.
Jonathan watches through the window, unable to breathe. This is how lives get destroyed. This is how innocent people end up arrested, charged, fighting cases they shouldn't have to fight. One false positive, one misidentification, one officer willing to see what he wants to see instead of what's actually there. The officer says something to his partner. They both look at Jonathan through the patrol car window. Then the older one shakes his head, tosses the packet back into the car. Not drugs, just protein powder. But for 30 seconds, Jonathan's entire future hung on the judgment of a man who'd already decided he was suspicious before knowing anything about him.
They find nothing, because there's nothing to find. No drugs, no weapons, no contraband of any kind, just legal documents, a spare tie, protein bars, and the accumulated evidence of a life lived carefully, lawfully, and successfully despite every obstacle. At 8:11 a.m., the handcuffs come off. No citation, no arrest, no apology. The first officer hands back his license and bar card without making eye contact. His expression never changed once during the entire encounter. You're free to go. That's it. Nearly an hour and a half of Jonathan's life, taken without cause and returned without explanation. No ticket to contest, no arrest record to challenge, no documentation beyond the body cam footage that Jonathan doesn't know exists yet. Just a message delivered clearly and unmistakably. Your rights are theoretical, your success is suspicious, and your compliance is expected regardless of the law. Jonathan gathers his scattered papers from the roadside, his hands shaking. Some documents are gone, blown too far to retrieve. He straightens his tie, smooths his jacket, and gets back in his car. His reflection in the rearview mirror shows a man who looks nothing like the confident attorney who left home 2 hours earlier. He arrives at court 43 minutes late. His client is sitting outside the courtroom, anxious and confused. Jonathan's shirt is wrinkled, his tie is crooked, his hands are still shaking slightly from the adrenaline. He apologizes, composes himself, and walks into the courtroom to argue for justice on behalf of someone else, while the injustice done to him sits fresh and unresolved in his chest. He wins the case. His legal arguments are sound, his evidence compelling, his presentation professional despite the chaos of the morning. The judge rules in his client's favor, awarding her compensation and ordering policy changes at her former employer. It's a victory. It should feel triumphant. Instead, Jonathan sits in his car in the courthouse parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. That evening, he files a formal complaint with the police department. He requests the body cam footage. He documents every detail of the encounter while it's fresh in his memory. The time, the location, the officers' badge numbers that he memorized while sitting handcuffed in their patrol car, the absence of any stated violation, the search conducted without consent, the taser threat for asserting constitutional rights, the protein powder moment that could have changed everything. He knows how these complaints usually end. 97% of police misconduct complaints result in no discipline, but he files anyway because silence is complicity, and he didn't go to law school to be complicit. The investigation takes 4 months. During that time, Jonathan drives a different route to work. He trades his Mercedes for a Honda Accord. He starts leaving for court 90 minutes earlier than necessary. He finds himself checking his rearview mirror constantly, his body tensing every time he sees a police car. He's experiencing symptoms he recognizes from his civil rights cases: hypervigilance, anxiety, a fundamental erosion of trust in the institutions he once believed in. His sleep is disrupted by recurring dreams of the encounter. In some versions, he argues more forcefully and gets tased. In others, he's completely silent and still gets arrested. In the worst ones, the protein powder tests positive for something it isn't, and he wakes up with his heart pounding, remembering how close he came to being another statistic, another innocent person caught in a system designed to presume guilt. When the body cam footage is finally released, it confirms everything Jonathan reported. The video shows his car committing no traffic violations. The audio captures the immediate command to exit the vehicle with no explanation, captures the officer's flat, emotionless voice throughout the encounter. It shows the search conducted without legal basis. It captures the taser threat in response to Jonathan's calm assertion of his constitutional rights. It shows the protein powder moment, the officer tasting it, the 30 seconds of judgment that could have destroyed an innocent man's life. The police department's internal investigation concludes that the stop was pretextual. The officer's report claims he observed suspicious behavior, but the body cam footage shows no such behavior. Jonathan was simply driving while black in an expensive car early in the morning. The search was found to be unconstitutional. The officer's conduct was deemed inconsistent with department policy and training. The officer receives a written reprimand and mandatory retraining on constitutional rights and implicit bias. He remains on active duty. He still conducts traffic stops. Within 6 months, he'll be named in another complaint, then another. The pattern continues because a written reprimand changes nothing about the culture that produced the behavior or the system that protects it. Jonathan's complaint is marked as sustained, which is supposed to mean vindication. It doesn't feel like vindication. It feels like confirmation that everything he feared about the system is true. You can do everything right, follow every rule, know every law, present yourself as respectably as possible, and still be treated as suspicious, as threatening, as less than human by people who've sworn to protect and serve. The local news picks up the story. The body cam footage goes viral, shared across social media platforms, dissected in comment sections, analyzed in think pieces. The protein powder moment becomes a focal point. People watch that 30-second sequence and realize how easily an innocent person's life can be destroyed by an assumption, a misidentification, a willingness to see guilt where none exists. Jonathan gives interviews, carefully choosing his words. He doesn't want to appear angry, even though he is angry. He doesn't want to seem like he's attacking all police officers, even though he's questioning the entire system that allowed this to happen. He talks about the need for accountability, for better training, for addressing implicit bias in policing. He explains how traffic stops have become opportunities for pretextual searches that disproportionately target communities of color. He discusses the data showing that black drivers are pulled over more frequently and searched more often, despite being less likely to be found with contraband. He describes that moment when the officer tasted his protein powder, when his entire future depended on whether someone would choose to see the truth or see what they expected to see. He's measured. He's professional. He's exactly what people want him to be when they're willing to listen to complaints about injustice. Some people in the community support him. They share their own stories of pretextual stops, of being questioned about their vehicles, of having their success treated as evidence of criminality. Others question whether he's exaggerating, whether he somehow provoked the encounter, whether his legal knowledge is being used to make a bigger deal out of something routine. They focus on his tone, his word choices, looking for any excuse to justify what happened to him. The comments on the news articles and social media posts reveal the divide. Some people watch the footage and see a clear violation of rights. Others watch the same footage and claim he should have just cooperated more, been less assertive, even though he complied with every command. They want to believe the system works, and believing Jonathan means accepting that it doesn't. His law practice changes after the incident. He takes on more civil rights cases, representing clients who've experienced similar encounters. People who were pulled over for fabricated violations. People who were searched because they seemed nervous, as if nervousness during a police encounter is somehow evidence of guilt. People whose legal substances were treated as suspicious, whose lives were nearly destroyed by assumptions and false positives. It's meaningful work, but it's draining. Every case is a reminder of his own experience. Every client's story echoes his own trauma. He sits in depositions listening to officers explain their training and experience that somehow always leads them to stop and search black and brown drivers at rates that defy any explanation except racial profiling.
He reviews bodycam footage that shows the same patterns over and over: the pretextual stop, the unjustified search, the aggressive escalation when people assert their rights, the mechanical, emotionless delivery of commands as if the person being ordered around isn't fully human. His colleagues notice the change in him. He's more cynical now, less willing to give the benefit of the doubt, less patient with arguments that these incidents are isolated rather than systemic. He's seen too much. He's experienced too much. He can't unsee the pattern once you've lived it yourself. 3 years after his stop, a pattern emerges that vindicates everything Jonathan suspected. The same officer who stopped him has been named in 23 separate complaints. Same behaviors, same pretextual stops, same violations, same flat, emotionless demeanor. The department had the data, they had the complaints, they had the sustained findings from internal investigations. They did nothing until a federal lawsuit forced their hand. The lawsuit reveals that the department knew this officer had a pattern of targeting black drivers. His stop rates for black motorists were 4 times higher than his colleagues. His search rates were exponentially higher. His complaint rate was in the top 5% of the entire department, and yet he received promotions, positive evaluations, and assignments to high-profile units. The culture rewarded the behavior it claimed to condemn. The officer is finally terminated, but only after dozens of lives have been disrupted, only after countless constitutional violations, only after the cost of his continued employment exceeds the cost of accountability. The department settles the federal lawsuit for an undisclosed amount. No admission of wrongdoing, no policy changes mandated, just money paid out of taxpayer funds while the culture that produced the behavior remains unchanged. Jonathan watches the news coverage of the officer's termination from his office. He doesn't feel satisfaction, he feels exhausted. One officer fired doesn't change the system that protected him for years. It doesn't change the culture that sees certain people as inherently suspicious. It doesn't change the statistics that show this isn't an isolated incident, but a pattern repeated in communities across the country, in cities large and small, in departments that swear they've addressed these issues, and departments that deny they exist at all.
His clients ask him sometimes if it's worth it, if fighting these cases changes anything, if their complaints will matter, if their trauma serves any purpose beyond adding another data point to statistics that nobody seems willing to address. He tells them it does, because he has to believe it does. Every case won sets a precedent. Every policy changed because of litigation is one less opportunity for abuse. Every officer held accountable is a message to others that violations have consequences. But late at night, when he's alone with his thoughts, he wonders. He wonders how many Jonathan Webbs there are who aren't lawyers, who don't know their rights, who can't file articulate complaints or afford litigation. He wonders how many encounters happen without bodycam footage, without witnesses, without any documentation beyond the word of an officer against the word of a citizen who's already been presumed guilty. He wonders about the traffic stops that don't end with a sustained complaint, the ones where people comply silently, accept the violation, and go home feeling humiliated but grateful they survived. The ones where evidence is planted, where reports are falsified, where protein powder becomes cocaine in an official report and an innocent person's life is destroyed because the truth doesn't matter as much as the assumption. The body cam footage of his stop has been viewed millions of times online. It's used in training seminars, in civil rights presentations, in criminal justice courses. The protein powder moment is analyzed frame by frame, showing how close the system came to manufacturing guilt where none existed. It's become a teaching tool, which means his worst morning has become a public spectacle, replayed over and over for educational purposes. He agreed to its use because awareness matters, understanding matters. People need to see what these encounters actually look like, stripped of the sanitized language of police reports. They need to see how easily an innocent person can be criminalized, how quickly assumptions can become accusations, how a simple traffic stop can become a life-altering trauma. The body cam footage of his stop has been viewed millions of times online.
It's used in training seminars, in civil rights presentations, in criminal justice courses. The protein powder moment is analyzed frame by frame, showing how close the system came to manufacturing guilt where none existed. It's become a teaching tool, which means his worst morning has become a public spectacle, replayed over and over for educational purposes. He agreed to its use because awareness matters, understanding matters. People need to see what these encounters actually look like, stripped of the sanitized language of police reports. They need to see how easily an innocent person can be criminalized, how quickly assumptions can become accusations, how a simple traffic stop can become a life-altering trauma.
His law school mentors tell him he should be proud. He's built a successful practice. He's won significant cases. He's made a real difference in his community. He's become a voice for people who've experienced what he experienced. And he is proud, in the abstract sense of professional accomplishment. But success tastes different when you've been handcuffed on the way to earning it. Achievement feels hollow when you know that no amount of education or credentials or professional success can fully protect you from being seen as suspicious in certain eyes. The question that haunts him isn't whether he did the right thing that morning. He knows he did. He complied when ordered. He asserted his rights when possible. He documented everything. He pursued accountability through proper channels. He did everything the system says you're supposed to do. The question is what doing the right thing should cost. What price is acceptable for exercising your rights? How much trauma is reasonable in exchange for driving to work? At what point does the burden of proof shift from the person with a badge to the person trying to live their life? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're the questions at the center of thousands of cases, millions of encounters, decades of policy debates. They're questions that get asked in courtrooms and classrooms and community meetings, and the answers depend entirely on who's asking and who's been asked. Jonathan still goes to court. He still argues cases, still believes in the law as a tool for justice, still tells young lawyers that the system can work if good people fight to make it work. But he also tells them the truth that his professors never told him. Your rights are only as strong as the willingness of others to respect them. Your safety is only as guaranteed as the accountability of those with power over you. And sometimes doing everything right still isn't enough. He teaches seminars now on how to survive police encounters. Know your rights, he tells people, but know that asserting them might escalate the situation. Comply with lawful orders, but understand that determining what's lawful in the moment is nearly impossible. Record if you can, but recognize that footage doesn't always lead to accountability. Be aware that innocent items can be misidentified, that assumptions can become accusations, that your life can change in the 30 seconds it takes someone to decide what they're looking at. The advice feels inadequate, a series of compromises between safety and dignity, between survival and justice. The officer who stopped him that morning didn't wake up intending to violate someone's rights. He probably didn't think of himself as racist or abusive. That flat, emotionless demeanor suggests someone who's processed encounters like this so many times they've become routine, mechanical, stripped of the human element that should be present when you're exercising power over another person's life. He likely believed he was doing his job, following his instincts, keeping his community safe. That's what makes the problem so insidious and so difficult to solve. The harm isn't always intentional. The bias isn't always conscious. The system doesn't always fail spectacularly. Sometimes it fails quietly, one pretextual traffic stop at a time, one unjustified search at a time, one erosion of trust at a time. It fails in encounters that don't make the news, that don't result in viral videos, that don't spark protests or policy debates. It fails in the accumulation of small indignities and constitutional violations that people experience and then carry with them, changing how they move through the world, changing their relationship with the institutions that are supposed to serve them. And the people who experience these failures are left to navigate a world where their professional success, their legal knowledge, their careful compliance still can't guarantee their dignity. They're left to explain to their children how to behave during police encounters, to make themselves small and non-threatening, to survive interactions that should be routine. They're left wondering if the promise of equal protection under the law was ever meant to include them, or if it was always conditional, always subject to the discretion and biases of whoever happens to be wearing a badge. Jonathan Webb got to court that day. He won his case. He pursued accountability. He used his platform and his profession to advocate for change. In many ways, his story has a better ending than most. The footage was preserved. The complaint was sustained. The officer was eventually fired. The protein powder was identified correctly, preventing a false arrest that would have destroyed an innocent man's life. These are victories, however small and delayed. But the larger question remains unanswered, and perhaps unanswerable through any single case or any single victory. When compliance isn't enough, when respectability doesn't protect you, when knowing your rights can't guarantee they'll be respected, when documentation doesn't lead to accountability, when innocent substances can be misidentified and lives destroyed on an assumption, when the system protects those who violate it, what does justice actually mean, and who decides? Every traffic stop happens in that space between law and discretion, between policy and practice, between what should happen and what actually does. And for too many people, that space is where their rights disappear, where their dignity is violated, where the promise of equal treatment reveals itself to be conditional on factors they cannot control and should not have to.
This is the conversation we need to be having. Not about individual bad officers, though they exist, not about isolated incidents, though each one matters, but about a system that produces these outcomes with such regularity that they've become unremarkable, expected. Just another cost of existing in certain skin in certain places at certain times. Jonathan Webb's story is one story among thousands, but it's a story that teaches us something critical about the gap between the rights we claim to have and the rights we can actually exercise. It's a story about assumptions that become accusations, about success that breathes suspicion, about compliance that doesn't guarantee safety, about protein powder that could have been mistaken for cocaine and changed an innocent man's life forever. It's a story about a system that needs to change, and about the people willing to fight for that change, even when fighting means reliving their trauma, even when victory looks like a written reprimand instead of real accountability, even when doing everything right still isn't enough. What would you have done in that situation? If you were Jonathan, watching that officer taste your protein powder, knowing your entire future hung on whether he chose to see the truth or see what he wanted to see? How would you have felt? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if this story made you think, if it challenged you, if it showed you something you needed to see, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. These conversations don't happen without people willing to engage with uncomfortable truths. Your subscription, your comment, your share matters. Because silence isn't neutrality. Silence is acceptance, and we can't accept this as normal. Subscribe now, and let's keep this conversation going.